Alright, everybody. I know that I haven't made a video in quite a while, so I'm going to start the new year off right. And we're going to start off with the top 10 favorites and worsts of 2011 for movies. So, my number 10 is Insidious. That's my number 10 top 10 pick for 2011. Insidious came out back in April, about the first week of April, and the film was actually shot for under $1 million, and turned out its worldwide success earned 79 million. Now, it is an old-fashioned style horror movie, if you will. Not really horror, but it's got a very creepy element to it. It's kind of like one of those old haunted houses. The beginning is very slow. It builds up to its climax, and once it gets to its climax, it's like a roller coaster all the way from there until the very end. And I liked it. Not a whole lot of people really liked it, but I did. Thought it was really great. It was very creepy. The monster who looks like Darth Maul scared the crap out of me, and my pants almost turned brown. So Insidious is my number 10 pick because it's really good, and it's just kind of creepy. If you want to kill some time, it's a really good way to kill time. So that's my number 10. Number 9 is all right. My number 9 pick is Bridesmaids. Bridesmaids came out back in May 17th, I believe. I'm not sure. Uh, I was going in expecting a very normal formula chick flick. It's got a female lead. She goes through this crazy adventure, and I was thinking, okay, it's nothing new. What I got in return was a very hilarious, very funny, raunchy comedy I was not expecting. And for a raunchy comedy, it had a lot of heart to it, which was really unexpected, but it was really good. It was really, really good. Took my girlfriend to go see it, and I think she may have been laughing a little louder than I had at some of the stuff. So it's really good because she doesn't really laugh a whole lot, and so for her to laugh like that was really great. And it's just all around a good movie. It's got heart. It's raunchy. It's funny. It's dramatic when it needs to be, and it's one of those that a guy can go see and not grow a vagina in while watching. So it's very good, really, really good quality. So that's my number 9 pick. My number 8 pick is, and my number 8 is also a raunchy comedy that came out in July called Horrible Bosses. Now, Horrible Bosses is very, very funny, very raunchy. It's it's kind of like 9 to 5 with Dolly Parton, except the male version, and wasn't expecting what I thought I was going to expect, and didn't actually think I was going to like it because I was like, who wants to kill their bosses? And then I was thinking about it, I was like, well, in some situations, you kind of understand. So, just went in there. So, so funny. The reason why this one's number 8 and not number 9 is because I think number I think Horrible Bosses was more relatable than Bridesmaids in certain aspects, and it's all around really funny. And love Jennifer Aniston's role in it. She was so raunchy. She was so funny, and it was a side I've actually never seen to her before, so it was good to see her do something different. Really, really liked her in that movie. My number 7 pick is Super 8. Super 8 came out in June of this year. Super 8 is a popcorn fluff movie that is very fun, very actiony, very just all around really good. Steven Spielberg did a really, really amazing job in this movie. And J.J. Abrams, with his follow up to Star Trek, this was the right choice for him. It had science fiction, it had action, it had suspense, and there were quite a few parts that made you jump. You didn't really know where the movie was going. From the trailer, you didn't even know what the movie was about, hardly. And it's just a good throwback to the old adventures like The Goonies and a lot of older movies that are really great. It's one of Steven Spielberg's nostalgia films. It really goes back to his beginnings. So Super 8 was very great, very intelligent too. It really made you think. And it was just all around it was a fun movie. It was a really fun, especially the train sequence was really good. So that was my number 7 pick, was Super 8. My number 6 pick for 2011 is. All right, my number 6 pick for 2011 is Terrence Malick's Tree of Life. It's a very unique movie, very out there movie. It's a really great movie. It's got a really great story to it, and it's actually got two or three themes that go along in the movie that you really kind of don't get, but at by the end of the movie you kind of figure it out through what you see. And when he tells his story, he doesn't use words. There's not a whole lot of talking in it, but he uses images and sounds and all these different things that you really have to think about. It's very deep and emotional. I can tell this is one of Terrence Malick's more personal films, and through the images, you kind of understand the story better. You understand the characters better. Brad Pitt is so good in this movie. This is up there with Benjamin Button, I believe, and Jessica Chastain, as you all might know her from The Help. She was very good. Both of those were phenomenal actors and actresses. And the reason why it's number six is because it's one of those after you see it kind of movies. You have to really think about it, and you'll be talking about it for 3 4 days most of the time. And it's kind of almost like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I mean, the feel for it. So it's very very great, very touching, very very deep subjects, and it was all around a great movie. It was just very interesting. It's one of those you're either going to love it or you're not going to like it at all. And I really, really liked it. I thought it was really great. So that's the reason why it's number six. My number five film of 2011 is. Alright, number five for 2011 is The Help. The Help is such a great movie by Catherine Stockett, who originally wrote the book. It was so good about the Southern maids back in 1960 who worked for the upper to middle up to upper class white citizens, and it is so good. The history, the relevance, the acting was superb, and Emma Stone did a great job, and Octavia Spencer. Just they were both really really well. Jessica Chastain, who was also in Tree of Life, is Celia Foot in The Help. Actresses were phenomenal. They were so well written. They transferred from the book very well. It was all around a great movie, and it's been nominated for quite a few awards. And if you have seen it or have read the book, it's definitely one of those rare movies that captures the book's essence and just goes with it. And you'd really be really happy if you've read the book and watched the movie like I have. Transferred very well, very relevant to today's culture, today's media, and it's got that something about it, that nostalgia, that the time period. I don't know, just it was really really great. Everything about it was great, and Tate Taylor is the director, who is, I don't want to say unknown, but he's not as famous as Steven Spielberg or Martin Scorsese or anybody like that. But he did really really well, and it was all shot in location in Greenville, Mississippi, and it was an amazing film. It was just simply phenomenal. It was really great. The reason why it's not number one is because there are a few things about it that there's a few other films that are just a little bit better. But number five definitely goes to The Help because it's so well written, so amazingly acted and directed. So that's the reason why it's number five. Number four is. Okay, guys, so number four that ranks in for 2011. Now, most of you may not agree with this. You may think it should be number one. But in my opinion, it's number four because there are three other movies that are just as good as this one. And my number four is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Now, it's a saga, it's been really popular since it first came out. And the reason it's not number one for me is because there are some differences from the books. Just a few. The whole series in general is really, really great. As a story, as written, is really, really great. But the only reason is that it's kind of cliched to be number one, and also there are some other movies that are just better. I mean, it was a great film. That's why it's number four. But from my opinion, it's not number one. There are three other ones that you'll see in just a few minutes that are my three, two, and one. But it is great. It's a classic, good versus evil. Good always wins over evil, and it was very great and stylized. I mean, it's one of those that I could rewatch over and over and over again, and it's really well done. It went out with a bang. It did the series justice, and I'm glad they split it into two parts because one built up the story and two is just the grand finale. And so Harry Potter: Deathly Hallows Part 2 is definitely my number 4 pick for 2011. My number 3 pick, which surprisingly enough is the interesting. All right, guys. Number 3, surprisingly enough, is War Horse by Steven Spielberg. I saw this movie actually the day before yesterday, and I have to say it was so good. They actually used real horses, which I know that sounds retarded when you hear it because you're like, well, it's war horses. Of course, it's a real horse. But they actually used real horses for the entire film, and if you've seen the film or if you've even heard about the film, there's a lot that goes on. It's very emotional, and Steven Spielberg, he pulls it off. I have to hand it to him. I have to hand it to the man. He's pulled it off really, really well. And for a movie that's got a lot of no-name actors and very, very B-rated, actor, but for what he's got, he does extremely well. And I have seen the play, and the play was great, but he took it to a whole new level with actually shooting and with the actual live production. It's really really great, and the horse is phenomenal. I mean, even though he's a horse, he does so well as that horse. And I want to give a shout out to Albert, the guy who was the boy who played Albert. He was great. He's gonna have a good career because he did so well in that movie. I mean, he did phenomenally well, and it's one of those that it is war. It's got a lot of war in it. It's very intense war scenes, but it's got no language in it. It's got no cussing in it. It's got a great moral story, a great moral value to it that you just don't see a lot in today's movies, and it kind of strikes you because you're like, wow, this is really good, really intense movie, and the just the whole England countryside where he filmed was beautiful, breathtaking shots, and the music score was it fit the movie so well. And it's one of those when you hear it, that's what you'll automatically think for the rest of your life. Once you've seen the movie, that music you'll think that's Warhorse. That's Warhorse. Great movie, and it's going to be an Oscar contender too, I believe, because it is the direct. He did so good, and he just pulled it off as a whole. And it's not cheesy in any way. And I was afraid it's going to get a little bit cheesy because I was like, okay, Steven Spielberg. I know he can do action. I know he can do suspense because of Super 8. But I want to see how he tackles the emotional side, and he did a really good job. Really good job. And it's one of those. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I almost cried at the very end. I almost cried because it was really good. And I don't usually cry a lot, so for a movie to make me do that is really good. Um, so that's my number 3 pick was Warhorse, and my number 2 pick, surprisingly, is a movie you've probably never heard of, but if you have heard it, you need to see it. And my number 2 pick is okay, guys. So number 2 of my top 10 2000 list for movies is The Invention of Hugo Cabret. Now, I didn't really know what to expect because, yes, I have read the book. I'm a big nerd, so I have read most of the books that make into movies. And it was Martin Scorsese, and I was like, Martin Scorsese, child's film. I don't know how this is going to really work. So I went to go see it. I went and saw it in 3D. I have to say, out of the 3D gimmick that they have now, most everything's in 3D. That was the best use of 3D, and that's even including Avatar. And I didn't really care for Avatar, but its 3D was really well. But Hugo's was a lot better. I mean, it's one of those that it wasn't just in your face, the cheesy kind of 3D. It told a story, and the beginning sequence, the first 10 minutes, that is just no words or dialogue or anything. It's just the Paris in 1930s. It makes you feel like you're actually there and that you're actually part of the story and that you're meant to be there to see this film. And it was so well done. And the book actually doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue to it anyways, but what Martin Scorsese did, it was really really well. And from the poster's got this gigantic key on it, as you've seen. And that's not what the movie's about at all. The movie is actually about the silent film era back in 19, I guess 10, 12, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. But it's about Georges Méliès, and he was a French director, and he actually started most of the motion pictures that we have today. And he did a lot of the silent films, and it was somewhere in black and white, and I think they eventually turned into color, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. That may just be Martin Scorsese. I don't know. But he did really, really well. I actually took my grandmother to go see it, and she actually falls asleep very easily in movies, but she loved this movie. She thought it was so great. She thought that everything, the action, the story, it was really, really, really good. And Jude Law was really good in it too. And it was very believable. The whole movie pulled off every stop, and it was phenomenal. I mean, it was just one of the best movies of 2011 besides the number 1 pick, which you'll see in just a second. But for number 2 is definitely The Invention of Hugo Cabaret. Didn't really make a whole lot because the trailer throws you off and you think it's going to be this, grand epic of an adventure, and you think it's actually going to be a little bit generic. But when you go see it, the movie just takes you in this whole different direction, and it's like you actually feel like you're transported back to the 1910s, 1920s. It was very, very well done. Very well done. Martin Scorsese, I tip my hat to because it was great. It was just phenomenal. So my number 2 pick is The Invention of Hugo Cabaret, and you need to check this movie out because even if you don't, even if you're not a big film buff like I am, you'll still really love the story. And I do have to warn you, it's almost a silent film, almost. And you're probably sitting there watching this thinking, yeah, right, a silent film. I'm really gonna like that. But with the cinematography and the music score and the camera angles, you're really gonna like this film. And I suggest everyone see this film because it was very, very well done. So that's my number 2 pick. My number 1 is coming up in just a second. So my number 1 pick is, okay, guys. So for those of you who sticked around long enough to watch this video and have gotten to number 1, my number 1 pick is actually kind of a foreign film almost. It was made, I believe, in the USA, but it's very big overseas right now. It's based on a comic strip, actually back from 1912, and it's a Belgian comic strip. So I'm gonna be a little bit biased because I have read some of these comics and I really, really liked them. And I thought, okay, now how is this gonna transport to the main screen? Because I was like, I'll say that in just a second. But it was so great. I was wondering how they were gonna do this justice. So if you haven't caught on by now, my number 1 pick is The Adventures of Tintin, and it was so, so good. It's actually again another Steven Spielberg films. He's made it 3 times in this list with Super 8, War Horse, and now The Adventures of Tintin. Now, The Adventures of Tintin is cartoon. Yes, I agree, and people don't hate me for this, but it's that uh, motion capture, I believe is what they call it now, animation, and It's the same style as Polar Express almost, except this time Steven Spielberg took his time and it looks very real. I had to sit there in the IMAX because I saw it in IMAX 3D, and I had to sit there and convince myself, okay, this is cartoon because it looked so real. I mean, it just blew my mind how real it looked. And the 3D was really great. 3D was kind of like Hugo. It was more of a storyteller than a gimmick, and it really worked very well. Now, uh, it was phenomenal. I really didn't have any complaints about it except the ending. I did not like how it ended. But I see why he did that to keep you interested and to make you want to see another one. And before you guys, go, well, it's foreign, it's Tintin. Um, Believe it or not, the movie was just now released in the United States back on December 21st. The movie actually has been out since August overseas, and overseas it has grossed, I believe, 230 to 250 million dollars overseas, and of course it's going to be a bigger hit over there because they know more about it than we do. If you ask anybody in America what Tintin is, 9 times out of 10 you're probably not going to get the right answer. But it hasn't done that well in the States because we don't know about it as well. But from what Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson have done, which Peter Jackson did Lord of the Rings and is doing the new Hobbit movie coming out in next December. But they worked really well together on that movie. And Jamie Bell, tip my hat, you made a great Tintin. Uh, Very believable. The facial expressions, you would not believe how well they've done that. I mean, the hair, the eyes, the face. I mean, it all looked so real. And so that's my number one is the Adventures of Tintin. I'm gonna be like I said, I'm gonna be a little bit biased because I like the comics. But and just fair warning for you guys out there, I have not seen every movie made in 2011. I have not even begun to come close to seeing every movie. So if there's a movie that's on this list that you think deserves to be on the list, comment on it below on Facebook or on YouTube and tell me what you think because like I said, I have not seen, all these movies. I have seen just probably about 50 movies this year, but I have not seen all of them. And so if there's one, that I've forgotten to mention or if you think there's one that should have been on this list but wasn't included, write it in the comments below and tell me about it. So up next is my top 10 worst of what I absolutely hated of 2011. So anyways, you guys, thanks for watching this video, and I'll post the worst probably in a few days. So seeing how far this one goes. But if you like it, comment on it and tell me about, what was your favorite movie of 2011?